Hello, everyone. Welcome into our last minute broadcast. It turned out I had a lull in my day today, and all my favorite streamers have stopped with their live video content. They finished it, and there was nothing else to watch. So I thought I'd put something on and become something to watch. So, just off the cuff, I thought we'd do an open technical question, technical support, customer support, open forum here. You guys are certainly welcome to join us in the chat, and I'll do my best to provide answers to any problems that you're having. I want to start off by first telling you that one of the things I see a lot that's very frustrating for me is I see people creating problems, and they're not having any problems. They're watching a video, perhaps. They're being inspired by something, and they take a perfectly good working computer and they break it, or they make it unreliable. And you know, if you want to learn and go about that, I'd recommend you buy a cheap computer. Just go buy one from, you know, a recycler and have at it. But when it becomes an issue of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, it gets pretty stressful, and people are not in the best state of mind to help them. The other thing I see people do is when people are looking for help, they get angry at the people that they should be being kind to. So in other words, if you're hungry and you want to eat, even if your emotional state is anger, and you see that you know other people are being fed and you're not being fed, the right approach is to be polite. Say, am I not doing something I'm supposed to do, or is there something I need to do to be fed because you're feeding all the other people? You understand what I'm saying? Like, you need to come at it gentle. What a lot of people don't understand is when you demand somebody help you, when you tell somebody, you must do this for me, no, they don't. You don't write their check. Unless you're their boss and you write their check, they're paid the same whether they help you or they don't help you, and they're paid the same whether they go over and above and beyond, or they do the absolute bare minimum to get rid of you as soon as possible. So which person do you want to be? If you're reaching out, for example, I've seen some people leave comments, people I've never seen before. They'll leave a comment on a product that I've reviewed. And this is how toxic and infectious this disease is. It seems to be going around a portion of our culture. So I do a review of a product, and it doesn't matter what it is. And inevitably, somebody will come out of nowhere. We've never heard of them, they've never heard of us, and they are pissed off that they feel they've been ripped off by the company, typically for the product we're reviewing. Now, we don't know who they are. We don't know if they caused the problem and they're just really upset at themselves, but they're going to not accept that. We don't know if they've made any attempt to ask for any help. All we know is, from all appearances, these either are not real people, these are bots from competitors who are trying to dissuade others from buying you know, their competition stuff, which is very possible. Or it's somebody Google searching to look for others who agree with them, that it's not just them, because that doesn't make it right either. We've talked about how just repeating something over and over, or finding an echo chamber where you hear what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear, doesn't make it any more true, doesn't make it any more factual, and it's not going to get you to a solution. I had a gentleman buy a product key for me a number of years ago, and I'd never heard of him before. I assumed he's a viewer of the channel, and he bought a product key from me, which I was only doing as a favor, right, to viewers, and I assumed he was a viewer. I said, here's your product key, here's how you use it. He says, great, thank you very much. I said, if there's anything else you need, let me know. You're a customer of mine, you're a customer for life. He's like, wow, he was really impressed. Customer for life, that's, wow, right? Great, happy customer. Right on. So about 18 months later, this guy calls me. I don't know who he is. I've never heard from him before. I never heard from him since. This whole transaction was maybe 2 days of my life where he reached out, PayPal'd me some money. I put a certificate of authenticity sticker with product key in an envelope, mailed it to him. And we're done. You know, I dealt with hundreds, if not thousands of people after that. He has no concept of that. And he says, he calls me up, he goes, oh, I bought a product key from you. Oh, okay, I'm having some problems with my computer. Can you help me? I said, I can't help you right now. I'm super busy. Again, I didn't make any money off this guy. I don't know who he is. But when I have time, I'll be happy to help you. Give me like 2-3 days and I'll help you work through the problem. So everything's fine so far, right? He's doing everything like he should, except he's impatient and intolerant, which I did not know at the time. So the next day he calls me again, where I've already told him I've got other scheduled things, but I'm happy to help you. You know, you're in line, wait your turn, and I will get back to you. And so he calls me again. He goes, hey, I just tried reinstalling Windows on my computer and I can't get this key to activate again. I said, well, why did you reinstall Windows? And he says, I was having that problem. I go, yeah, I told you I'd help you with that. I didn't suggest you reinstall Windows because now you're going to have to get all your drivers. You have to reset up all your programs. You know, helping you now is going to be 10 times more difficult. He goes, well, all I want is the activation key to work. I go, well, the activation key auto renews all by itself. And if it doesn't, you'll have to purchase a new key. He goes, what do you mean I purchase a new key? I said, well, the key is tied to the motherboard for life. So unless you've reused it somewhere else or somebody has stolen it, regardless, this whole situation could have been avoided if you would have just waited for me to get back to you. We probably could have resolved this without you going through this extreme, but you know, here we are, and you know, you can buy another key. He goes, no, you need to provide me another key for free. Well, no, I don't. You didn't follow my guidance, and it was very clear when I sell the keys that they're tied to the board. Once you tie them to the board, that's it. Well, how am I supposed to know that? I said, well, it's in all my videos. He goes, what videos? I said, how did you know to email me and ask me for a product key? He's like, oh, I saw like a Google search or something, and he wasn't really looking at the results. I said, oh, well, I assumed you're a viewer, and that's why I wouldn't have sold you the product key if I would have known that. And he said, you should have told me before I bought the key. I said, I'm supposed to tell you what you don't know, but how do I know you don't know that? Like, that would be condescending, wouldn't it? If I'm assuming you've been watching my videos, you've been seeing me install Windows and use these keys, you reached out and asked me for one, which I said in the video I would do for viewers. I've sold you one using the videos as tutorials on how they work. Now you're coming at me saying you never saw any of my videos, and I'm supposed to tell you what you don't know, but somehow you expect me to know what you don't know. How does that work? He says, well, what happened to being a customer for life? I said, well, you're not being a customer right now. I said, you know, this is a big misunderstanding, because if I had known, I wouldn't have sold you the key. He says, well, if you'd have told me, I wouldn't have bought it. I go, all you had to do was wait for me to return your, I have you on my schedule. I was going to call you in 2 days so we can work through this problem. And you blew that out of the water. You gave me no chance. And now you're leaving me to clean up your mess. You know, you're not a customer. You're not paying for that. I was just being kind. And he's like, you know, you can go to hell. Okay, bye. So if you want somebody to help you, and I don't care if you're at Walmart, I don't care if you're having your car worked on, it doesn't matter. You can force somebody, right? Let's just say you have all the legal right. I've got a receipt. You are committed by law to help me. You'll get your help, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen quickly. It doesn't mean it's going to happen good. And it doesn't mean if they notice anything else while they're fixing whatever it is, that they don't offer it for you. They'll just keep their mouth shut and try and get you the hell out as quickly as possible. And you'll say, well, I'm never going to shop here again. Well, good. We don't want you ever here again. We couldn't stay in business if all of our customers were like you. You're poison to a business. On the other hand, if somebody comes in and says, you know, I've been waiting here a while. I'm just curious, was I forgotten, or how much longer do you think it'll be? Usually the response you get is an apology. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, whatever the excuse is, and we're going to get to you right away. And they may do something over and above to apologize for the wait. But if you're rude and you're like, damn it, I've been waiting here and I expect service right this minute, they will probably give you that service right that minute. They're not going to pay too much detail or time in trying to get you. They're going to do the absolute bare minimum to get you out as quickly as possible. Who would want to be around you? And it's pretty interesting that if you really look at the way the universe works and how we treat each other, we often get what we give. And when I see somebody pop into the comment section of a review I've done, don't buy from this company, they're horrible. I bought something and 2 weeks later it broke. Okay, there's a 30-day return policy on Amazon. Companies don't stay in business by selling broken stuff. So yeah, sometimes things happen. Now we don't know, one, that you're a real person. We don't, you know, in this case, in the example, we've never seen this person before. There's just some rando leaving a comment. Could be a competitor. They could have dropped the damn thing or opened it up and broke it because they watched some YouTube video, got super excited on their new computer, immediately damaged their new computer. And now they're angry and now they want to take it out on somebody. That's not how you're going to get any help. Every single thing we review here, with few exceptions, you can buy on Amazon with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And most of the resellers, if you buy directly, or manufacturers like Minisporum or Nemo or any of these other manufacturers, typically have a very similar or even longer return period. But what I've seen people do, and the way I've seen it is in particular with the product keys, like SCD keys. I've seen people immediately start demonizing SCD keys because of a mistake. Half of the time, they're the ones making the mistake. And instead of saying, maybe I'm doing something wrong, can you verify for me? If I tell you about my situation, can you tell me if I'm missing something, or tell me what the next step would be? Because I'm really angry the thing I bought isn't working. Half of the time, the thing they bought that isn't working is because they're not using it properly. There's no shame in that. But when it comes across as arrogance, where you're upset about something you don't know, and now you're blaming other people for what you don't know, you're likely going to get a very bare minimum of any sort of help. Because why would anybody want to help you? If they have to help you, why would they want to make that help last any longer or go above and beyond for you? Why would they care if you threatened some ultimatum? I'm never going to shop here again. I'm going to leave it. Who cares? Who cares? You know, a company sells 10,000 laptops a month. You bought 3. It's like complaining about grains of sand on a beach. They have the whole beach. 3 grains of sand is nothing to them. They obviously want you to come back and they want you to be a happy customer. But they also don't want to be your babysitter or your therapist. So how much they're willing to do for you to make something right, and this is universally true for any company, is going to be based on how you approach them for help. So I start seeing comments appearing randomly, without any rhyme or reason, to random products I reviewed from somebody I've never seen or heard of before that may not be a real person. who says, don't buy this. I bought one and XYZ doesn't work after a couple weeks. I was like, so why didn't you just return it? When you contacted customer service, what did they say? Why didn't you reach out to us and ask us for it? Like, you could have just emailed us at our email address. Even as a random stranger, you say, oh, there's somebody who had a product. Did you not watch our live review? Did you see us having any problems with it? What makes you think leaving your comment and warning other people of the dangers without providing any evidence is somehow being a social justice warrior, when I've just shown a live video of everything working perfectly fine? I've already shown you how to reach out to the company. I've already shown the warranty. And nowhere in these complaints did they ever reach out about getting their money back. They never reach out about asking the company for help. And they don't fully disclose if they bought something new or used, if they bought it from eBay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that may be a very, very important part of the story. The lesson may be, don't buy it from an unauthorized distributor if you're expecting somebody to give you white glove service. And so what I found is a lot of times when I respond to these rando people and ask them, like, what did the company say when you reached out for help? I get no answer. So they're never coming back. It's like they're doing a Google search, they're leaving the negativity, and then they're leaving and never coming back again. And so I just hit the remove button. Nobody needs that. You just barged in, interrupted us. We don't know who you are. You can't be bothered to introduce yourself. And you can't be bothered to reach out to the company and ask for help. Everybody's evil. Everybody watch out for everybody else. Never buy this thing because I'm one of the few people that had a problem with it. Yeah, no one ever said every product they make is perfect, whatever it is. You've got to be reasonable. You've got to be tolerant. And, you know, to sit there and say after 10 weeks, you know, after whatever, it's a warranty. You have a warranty if you're outside of your 30-day return with Amazon. Why didn't you return it? You get a 100% money back or a free exchange. How could you act like somebody just stole from you when it's a minor inconvenience at best? And it could have been your delivery driver that drop kicked it to your door. Maybe that's the negative review you need to leave, is for UPS or FedEx. Maybe that's where the damage happened. So it'll be a nice world when the people being reviewed can review the reviewers. And let's see how that weighs out in the end, because the cream will always rise to the top. Certain people are only going to leave negative reviews, or they don't leave a review. And to be able to hold people accountable to say, okay, who did this review come from? What do we know about them? That will help gauge the value of that review. There are good customers, there are bad customers. There are good sellers and there are bad sellers. And while we often review the sellers or the thing they're selling, we don't often review the customers or voluntarily drawing attention to themselves in a form of attack, when we don't even know if they made any attempt to have the manufacturer resolve it. They just immediately declare war and become hostile without any form of diplomacy or any attempt at giving the other party a chance. They never give them a chance. This is a form of bullying and narcissism and intolerance. It's judgmental, and it makes your business completely not worth having. If I have a bunch of customers to help and all those customers behave that way, I'm just closing the doors, because that's not what the business is there for. We're not a therapy shop. If you have an actual concern, let's talk about it. And if we're unwilling and unable to resolve your concern, and we're not giving you your money back, then by all means, you should be warning other people. But only then. Because otherwise, an acorn has fallen out of the sky, and you're yelling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And I think the safest thing I can do to protect the community is delete those people, delete their comments and block them from the channel. But if those people were more reasonable, and if they came in and helped explain the scenario, and were looking for an answer, in other words, instead of putting their foot down going, this war is over, I've won, the other party's going, what war? We don't even know what you're talking about. It's like they live in their own little world. And people who read that have no idea, right? People who read that are under the impression from the person writing there was a war. There was never a war. No one was ever fighting. It was just all you this whole time. So there is no solution by doing that. You're never going to find happiness. You're never going to get your problems resolved. It is a dead-end road that will always be a dead-end road. It will never, ever, ever lead you to a solution. So if you're looking for a solution, we have to understand what the problem is and what you've tried to do to fix it. And in regards of any product, you should be reaching out to the manufacturer or returning to Amazon, and you should always be looking for that before you make the purchase. Now, if you didn't know that, that's your fault. That is entirely your fault that you wanted to roll the dice, probably because the price was cheaper on eBay. You got a seller who ain't taking it back. You got a problem device, and the manufacturer says, look, we didn't sell it to you. Amazon didn't sell it to you. That was the road you picked. Those were the risks you were going to take if you went down that road. For a few dollars more, if you would have bought it from the manufacturer or from Amazon or any other reputable retailer, you'd know you had 30-day returns, for example. Before you made the purchase, you checked that. Then you know if there's any problem, you can always send it back. Then you can look at the reviews on the product to see what the majority of other people say. If the majority of other people are, if this product has less than 3 stars from, 100 reviews, oh, you should probably stay away from that. But if a product has 100 reviews and 15% of them are under 3 stars, that's very normal. And in fact, anything less than that would be suspicious, because then I wouldn't believe the positive reviews. So we absolutely, as human beings, generally speaking, love to help one another. But what we don't like doing is being told what to do. If you tell me what to do, I'm probably going to do the opposite. That's just a staple of Generation X. My generation was raised to do everything opposite and to prove there's more than one way to do things, to get things done. And it didn't matter if it was harder or easier or if it took longer or took less. That wasn't the point. That was never the point. The point was that we're going to do it the way we want to do it, not the way you tell us to. But at the same time, we love helping other people. So when somebody is genuinely and sincerely, earnestly asking for assistance, we will bend over backwards, go out of our way and cancel our plans just for the mental, fulfillment we receive when we get a thank you and when we receive gratitude. Doesn't even have to involve money. For many of us, that's how we were raised. So you got to think about, who are you talking to? How many other people have they dealt with today? Are they at their last, you're calling customer service, so you're reaching out to a company. Do you have any idea how many people they talked to before they got to you? And if those people were sitting there chewing them out and being jerks, it's going to put the person you're talking to into a bad mood. You don't know that. And we're all human and we are affected. It's going to affect our emotional state. And since when you begin that phone call, say tech support, for all you know, this person just got off the phone with somebody chewing them out, won't listen, they're arrogant, they're intolerant, and they're judgmental, and now you're next. Okay, you have a choice to make. You can say, look, this person has a tough job. They're always busy. All they hear is people complaining. How can I be different? So the first thing you can do is calm down before you make the call. Get yourself in a non-emotionally charged state. Wait for that to pass. When you have a calm sense of mind, you call. How you doing today? Man, I'll tell you what. My day would be a lot better if I can get this thing to work. I don't know if it's me, or I was just really hoping you could help me out. And if you're sincere and you're earnest and you're honest, because this is honesty. This is really what you want. We live in a culture where we do everything the wrong way. When somebody is talking on top of you, the answer isn't to get louder. They're not going to hear you better if you shout. If you really want somebody to listen to you, lower your voice. And you'll see, when you lower your voice, they will lean in. You understand? If you attack, they will defend. But if you are kind and patient, think of it like dealing with a feral cat or a stray dog. You don't rush up on them and try and grab them. You've got to be calm and confident, relax, and that's going to be reflected back to you in most cases. Not in all cases, but in most. And in most cases, you're going to feel good when you got off the phone. Even if they couldn't resolve the problem right then and there, they likely have a plan. Like, hey, I'm going to send you an email, you're going to put this in a box, and you're going to send this back. One way or another, it's been resolved or it's in a process, and there was no reason to get angry, emotional. There was no reason to yell and argue and fight. And yet this is the choice we each have. And I don't know why anybody would continue to repeat the same behavior when they see that doesn't work. When you say, geez, all these companies are terrible these days, maybe it's not the companies. Maybe it's time to look in a mirror. Maybe. Just maybe. We often get exactly what we give. So if you're getting a pattern of negativity coming to you, it's probably because you have a pattern of negativity you're putting out. If people are being a pattern of being hostile with you, it's probably because you don't realize you're being hostile with them. And when you make this conscious choice to rise above that and to control your emotion and your emotional state, or to wait until you are calmer, you'll often find your end results are more positive. This is something each of you can test for yourself and see the results. Tell me I'm wrong. Because, well, it's not a 100% solution. It's going to work much better most of the time than this old-fashioned way of yelling and screaming and shouting and whining and complaining as though you're being wronged. It's not about whether or not you're being wronged. It's about your attitude. And when you understand that it's not done with malicious and willful intent, something just happened, okay, and you're saying, what can we do about it? You'll find with that calmer, more reasonable state of mind, the response you get is going to be more helpful. And you'll find not only are people grateful to you, because maybe the person on the other end of the phone just got chewed out. Maybe you just made their day a lot better. Right? You're already in a position where you need help, but maybe they need help too. And you're not obligated to do it, but you might find that if you do, you just might find that not only are they going to take care of you, they're going to throw in a little something extra. Maybe. Not that you should expect it, but you definitely shouldn't expect it at all if you're going to be demanding and intolerant, judgmental, and hostile to a complete stranger who just happened to answer the phone because it was you who called. You know, lucky them. So as a civilized species, we should be able to use our words and our civility, decorum and consideration and common courtesy to not have to explain how upset we are emotionally. It should be pretty obvious, right? Like, hey man, I just bought this thing, it doesn't work. I mean, can you just imagine my frustration right now? They'd be like, yeah, geez, that must suck. Let me see what we can do to get you back up and running as soon as possible. Like, you will have such a different experience 99 times out of 100 that you might look forward to calling tech support. You might be like, I really like talking to that person. Ask me how I know this. All right, let's see what we got in the chat room. Everybody's popping in here on this last minute broadcast. Mortant joins us and says hello. There's Charlie Purdy and Ron Barnish saying hello. Eugene Ildago and Bike Man. I also see Dave Leonard and Art Vuk joining us from Kentucky. Toman 2000 says hello. Mark Crippen Jr. Welcome in, Mark. I also see Gary Tatum. And Michael M. J.M. Biber, question for you. He says, once upon a time, a person could dedicate a drive for the swap file, letting Windows load programs faster since the swap file was on a different drive. Does that still work? It technically, yes, technically you could do that, but the reasons no longer exist. I mean, unless you're using a computer that doesn't have a solid state drive. The reason a swap file even exists is because you don't have enough RAM and the system has run out of RAM. So instead of crashing and saying you're out of RAM, your system creates virtual RAM, sometimes we call that a paging file or a swap file, on a hard disk drive, which is a much slower data access than RAM. RAM is some of the fastest way of moving data inside of your computer, faster even than an NVMe drive. However, once you reach a certain speed, you go faster than the human. Once you're faster than the human, it doesn't matter how much faster you go after that, the human can't tell the difference anymore. So when we were using, look, RAM was expensive, and by today's standards, not as slow. And a 32-bit operating system, you couldn't have more than 4 gigs of RAM. Just wouldn't take it until you couldn't break that barrier until you went 64-bit. So Windows 10 was the last Microsoft consumer operating system that had a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version. So yeah, if you put Windows 10 32-bit in, you're still stuck with, a maximum file size, like on, was it FAT32 did have a maximum file size of 4 gig, and then if you tried to copy a file larger than that, it'd say you were out of space. Even though you had plenty of space, the operating system mathematically wasn't able to write a data file that size. Your RAM was also limited to 4 gig, and it's limited to 4 gig on every 32-bit operating system, whether it's Linux or Apple. It's 2 to the power of 32, which I think works out to 4 million, something like that. I'm just going off the top of my head. It's just basically what 32-bit means, when talking about gravity or physics. When we go to 64-bit, exponentially, if you're going 2 to the power of 64, you get a lot more than 4 gigs. So anyway, RAM has become faster, and RAM has become cheaper. So where 4 gigs of RAM might have been the maximum you could put in, it's barely an acceptable minimum standard today. So if you have 16 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM or whatever you have, chances are you're not even using it, not all of it. You might be somebody who does use it, but you don't represent the ordinary computer user, and that's okay, but it doesn't put you into the majority. And you can run into the task manager, Control-Alt-Delete, look at your resource monitor, and you can see how much RAM you're using right now, and you can keep an eye on that for a few days and see what's the maximum amount of RAM you're really using. There's a very good chance that you are actually using far less than you have. But in the odd scenario where you don't have enough RAM, in other words, that you're using more RAM than you physically have, then your swap file comes into place. So your swap file will create a virtual memory on your solid state drive or your NVMe drive that's, upwards of 3 times to 12 times faster. No, I'd say 3 times to 100 times faster or more than a mechanical hard drive. Because that's so fast, you probably don't even notice it when it's happening. One reason they would move the swap file to a different drive is if your already very slow mechanical drive is loading files for your operating system while at the same time providing a virtual memory for the amount of memory you don't have that you need, everything starts to slow down. And so the solution was buy another mechanical hard drive and move the swap file to the other mechanical drive, so that the main C drive is busy loading your programs or running your operating system, and it's not being impeded by the need for virtual RAM. But you could have also solved the problem by buying more RAM and not needing the virtual file at all, depending on, the limitations of the operating system being 32-bit, in which case, you hit your 32-bit limit, that's all there is. So, while you could still move a swap file from a different drive, you likely will have no benefit in doing that. What you have to understand is Microsoft hires some very, very educated and experienced engineers to write their software. And it's not one guy making a decision for the world. There's a team of people, a team of peers, various experiences, but they all have to have a certain minimal education that likely anybody watching this channel likely does not have. And they have to work together as a team to compromise and find the best possible setup for every customer in the world, one universal way of setting it up. So when you install Windows, one of the things it does is it looks at your system configuration. How much RAM do you have? What processor do you have? How much RAM do you have? And it customizes the Windows system uniquely for each computer. And now if you think by yourself that you can outsmart that entire team of engineers that are all working together, and you alone have come up with a way that nobody else has ever come up with that gets you more performance with no consequences, I think you probably aren't being reasonable. When you move the default locations of your documents or your pictures or your swap file, these are generally the people that cry with problems online about how terrible Windows is because they got an update that broke their computer, because the engineers, well, they allow those locations to change, and usually it's okay. It's those little differences that were entirely unnecessary. They were a human psychological issue that the engineers, when they're applying the patches, aren't considering your psychology. They're assuming you left it alone the way they intended it to run. And if you do that, you likely will very rarely ever have problems with a computer. Now, if you want to know how I can say that, I've been working in this industry professionally since 1991. And right around the time Windows 7 came out, it started to become clear to me that I saw a pattern where the vast, and I mean the vast majority of repairs that were not component failure. Like I was still doing a lot of hard drive replacements and power supply replacements. That was pretty common. Not today it isn't, but back then it was. I would say 40 to 60% of other issues I had to fix that were not failed components, what I would be called failed users. They're users that broke their computer. And you ask them why they broke it. What was the goal here? What were you trying to achieve? And over and over and over, what I kept hearing is there was nothing wrong. I was trying to make it better. Okay, but explain better. Like what was it doing that you did not find good enough? And oftentimes they said nothing. Okay. Well, so for example, my system won't turn on. Okay. Is this a new system? No, I've had it for years. Okay. When did this problem start? Yesterday. Did you do anything to the machine yesterday that you think, maybe as a consequence, this is where we're at today? Well, all I did was I went in the BIOS and I changed some settings. Why'd you do that? Well, my system was running hot. So your system was shutting off randomly? No. Your system was just starting to crash? No. The fans were getting really loud? No. So then it wasn't running hot. Yeah, it was like, 80 degrees Celsius. It's too hot. It's too hot because of what consequence? Well, I look online and these people say it's too hot. So you weren't having any, the fans weren't loud, the system wasn't crashing, everything's fine. You loaded a piece of software to look at temperatures you don't normally, most users don't even look that up. Yeah, and do you normally look at that? No. So how long has it been running at 80 degrees Celsius? I don't know. Well, then how do you know it was wrong? Well, because that's what people online said. What would you like me to do for you today? I really need my computer. I can't work. Everything is down. I'm freaking out. I got bills to pay. I'm supposed to have this thing done. I can't do it. Okay. I can help you. And over and over and over again, self-inflicted wounds that were completely avoidable because of poisonous information that was misconstrued, misinterpreted, or misspoken from people who don't know what they're talking about creating content, from other people who don't know any better, listening to that like it's gospel and true, resulting in, me making quite a bit of money. It's just not how I wanted to make my money. I mean, there's nothing you can do if there's a power spike or a component failure. It's nobody's fault. It just happens. That's the kind of work I like to do. Fixing people's self-inflicted damage is not work I enjoy, because I know all this was avoidable if they would have just left it alone. And they don't have to leave it alone, and maybe they enjoy watching me work and paying me. Okay. I don't know why you have a problem with it, Carey. I don't mind. I feel bad. I feel bad that this was all avoidable, that all this stress and anxiety. Now, granted, I don't feel bad I'm making some money, but I feel bad about how I'm making it. I would rather people called me and asked me for preventive maintenance. Hey, Carey, it's been a while since I've had a tune-up on my computer. You do that, right? I do. What problems are you having? Oh, I'm not having any problems, but I've heard you say that it's important once a year that people should blow the dust out, delete the temp files, update the drivers, all that stuff. Make sure all the Windows updates and antivirus are working, and you still do that? I love that phone call. And while I'm on the phone, I go, oh, do you have backups? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. Well, for however long you want to do it and how much money you want to spend, I can do that right now today. We can get you started. Well, how do I update it? Well, we can set it on a schedule to auto update, or you can just, depending on how important your data is, reach out to me again when you're ready to update it. We can put you on a retainer. We can maintain this for you. That, if I had cherry-picked the only kind of work I ever want to do, it's that work and then any consequences of that work. So let's say we do everything we're supposed to do. Customer says, I got you on a retainer, you're maintaining my system, we're not touching the systems, we don't install any software without checking with you first, we don't change any printers out without checking with you first. We want you to have a hand in everything so you don't get blindsided and surprised, and that we don't get ourselves in trouble taking our whole system down and we freak out. We're going to put that on you, okay? Yes, please. In fact, if you ever get an attachment or you get a pop-up and you don't know if it's real or not, you call me. Yeah, I don't want to bother you. No, please take 10 seconds to call me and verify if that's something real. Because I don't want to spend 10 days undoing it, the damage that's caused, because you clicked on a link that now encrypted your entire network, and every computer on your network and all of your data is all encrypted. Please make the phone call. It's not bothering me. It bothers me if you don't. So we're all on the same page. So let's say they do all this and something happens anyway. Could be an employee made a mistake, component has failed. Customer calls me and says, my computer's buzzing. Is that normal? No. Should we look at it? Yeah, we should not wait and find out. Let's look at it now. As soon as you know, reach out. Hey, we got infected with ransomware. Somebody clicked on something, the antivirus didn't catch it, it got through. What do we do? I'll be there right now, shut everything off. We're going to restore your backup and put everything back. It's not that big of a deal. Going to have some data loss. There will be some, but it won't be shutting the whole company down and firing all your employees because you no longer have a business. So given the two, you know, somebody might say, I actually got this call. I was walking through my house last night and I saw like red and yellow and green coming out of the top of my computer. Now this computer has no case windows on it. It's a business computer. And they've had the computer for like a year. They've never noticed it before. But when they look through the holes on top of the Corsair 200R, they can see the RGB on the motherboard shining through at nighttime when they're walking through the house in the dark. Is that anything to be worried about? I don't mind that question because they don't know. Is it supposed to be doing it? I go, yeah, that's normal. That can be turned off in the BIOS of the system if it's bothering you. Oh no, it's not bothering me. I just wanted to know if, because I never noticed it. Has that always been there? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I go, it's getting harder and harder to find motherboards that don't have RGB on them. I probably just forgot to turn it off. It's just a little setting in the BIOS. Oh, no, you don't have to turn it on, as long as it's okay. Just thought it was odd. No problem. I love calls like that. I will take those calls all day, every day. What I don't like are the calls where people are like, well, I was changing my thermal paste. Why? Well, it was old and hard and crusty. How would you know? How do you know how hard and crusty your thermal paste is unless you've already taken this machine apart? So why, what led to you suspecting your thermal paste needed to be replaced? Well, I was watching a video and I was looking at my temps. Do you look at your temps all the time? No. What was the problem with the computer? Was it running loud? No. Was it crashing? No. Was it taking a long time to do anything? No. So you open the computer up because you ran a piece of software, you believe what the software is telling you, you believe what the people online are saying, you do work you don't have to do, and now the machine doesn't work, and now you're freaked out because you can't get your work done today. Yes. Okay. I'm not doing that to belittle anybody. I'm just trying to understand what happened between yesterday and today. What changed? So the minute I institute a policy and I say, you don't make any changes to this, you leave it alone. If you have any problems, you reach out to me. You think your system's running hot? Reach out to me. You have a question, you think your system's running slow and you want to know how you can speed it up? Reach out to me. Reach out to a trusted resource. Don't just go online and believe all the nonsense. There's entire videos made just for fun as a prank that you can't tell apart unless you're a technician, that everything they're telling you is wrong. I mean, I don't know what state of boredom somebody's got to be in to go through all the effort to make and edit and render and post and title a video that contains nothing of truth, where they're not there to watch the reaction on the person's face if they're being believed or not. I don't understand the mentality of that. And yet there's no shortage of it. It's everywhere. It's on Reddit, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook Reels, it's on TikTok. Some people find it a sense of humor to be sarcastic to a level that they're making a how-to video that is completely wrong and they're deadpan serious. There's a TikTok video or a Facebook Reels video, and it's this girl. She always makes the same videos, so if you've never seen her before, you may not get that this is a joke, but you'll definitely know it ain't right. But very seriously, she goes, here is a way that you can improve the taste of your salt. You take your salt and you pour about that much into a bowl. Right, she's taking it out of the main salt container. And you can look this video up. I'm not making it up. It's there and it's got, you know, millions of views. Usually reaction videos where people are like, well, she's kidding. It's not real. Anyway, so she goes, this is, you take your main salt, you pour it in there. Then you grab your table salt shaker and just shake 2 or 3 in there, and that's going to give you better salt. A lot of people don't know that. What? There's not a ha-ha, gotcha, just kidding. Nope, and the video's over. And then you got comments. Some of the commenters are in on it, and they go, wow, I wish I'd have known this sooner. Everything tastes so much better now. So if you don't know any better, if you're so easily gullible and you believe, like you're like, that can't be right, but there's commenters that are saying it's right, then you're the one the joke is on. Do you want to be the joke? I don't. Longest answer to a question ever. What were we talking about? Swap files? Might have rambled, but it somehow all connects together. Don't ask me how. I'm not even on the same path anymore. But I hope I answered your question somewhere in all of that. John Paul Bacon's talking about preseason football, man. Come on. August 4th. Doesn't matter. These teams playing, these games don't count. There's nothing on the line. So, yeah, I don't hold too much hope in a preseason game. It's sort of like when they have their all-star game, you know, they go to Hawaii. Their heart's not in it. The game doesn't count. Or scrimmages and baseball and stuff. Spring training. None of those games count. If you think those players are going to potentially injure themselves going all out full bore on a preseason game, no, it's practice. So yeah, one team beat another team in practice. So what? But I hear you. Look, I got nothing against any of these teams, but I wouldn't let any preseason indicate how the actual games that count are going to, you know, how these teams are going to perform when there's real consequences. I think it's going to be very different, but I'm skeptical that way. Oh, I guess there's a preseason game on now is what you guys are tired of. Okay. Yeah, I don't even bother watching them. David Graham says, what a salty video that was, right? It was very salty. Yeah, if you click on that creator's name, you'll start to get it. Like if you didn't get it at first, you'll see everything is ridiculous. But if you're just scrolling through, you know, doom scrolling and you see that, they really seem sincere. That's the delivery of the joke. Rowhammer talking about, you know, issue with social media. Well, freedom of speech is freedom to lie. I keep saying that over and over and over again. I'm not saying I'm against freedom of speech. What I am saying is that you cannot have one without the other. You cannot assume that all free speech is good speech or worthwhile speech. Some of it's a complete nonsense, rabbling waste of time. It's more important now than ever before to consider the source of the speech. Is this coming from a random stranger on Reddit or online somewhere in social media, or is this coming from a trusted source? That's it. It's actually a very simple exercise. And if you were writing a paper for schoolwork, I realize most of us haven't been in school for years, but if you remember when you were in school, if you were writing a paper, you would have to list your citations of where you got your information. The instructor is going to verify that you're just not making stuff up. Where did you get this information from which you wrote your thesis or from which you wrote your book report? Where did you get your information? Maybe on a book report you got it from reading the book, but on the other hand, if If you didn't read the book and what you did is you just went looking for notes online, you copied and pasted those as if you read the book, it's pretty obvious to most instructors you did that. If it's not in your writing style or it's not expressing itself the way you express yourself, normally it's very suspicious because they know you. They know what to expect from you. So if all of a sudden you go from, being Beavis and Butthead to turning around and being Einstein in your book report, the instructor's going to go, this doesn't feel right. Well, we've been doing this our whole lives. When somebody you know isn't acting themselves or doesn't sound like themselves, you become suspicious of it. But if it's somebody you don't know, how do you know if they're worth listening to? If what they say carries any merit that you should seriously consider it until you first established who they are. Oh, I have a YouTube channel. Anybody can have a YouTube channel. Well, I wrote a book. Who published the book? Self-published. Well, anybody can self-publish a book. Who hired you? Who paid you to write a book? Nobody. Who's paying you to make the content on YouTube? Who approved you for that job? Nobody. Okay. Something to consider. It doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about, but do I want to take diet advice from somebody who's fatter than I am? Do I want to take investment advice from a homeless person? It doesn't make people bad, and they might have the best of intentions. But it's like somebody telling me how to drive when I'm behind the wheel driving and they're in the back seat. In this case, it's somebody I know. And I know I drive better than they do, okay? But if it's a complete stranger, if I'm driving an Uber and I pick up a passenger and that passenger says, I don't drive very well, you know what? We're gonna just pull over, we're gonna end your ride right here. Have a nice day. I hope you find another driver that satisfies you. And I don't think we should be treating the internet any differently. Those of you who've been watching me for years, or those of you who've never seen me before, who decide, who is this guy? What does he know about computers? He's saying everything opposite of what these other viewers, other content creators are saying. Is he that dumb? Or are they that dumb? Now I don't know who to believe. That's part of my purpose, is to challenge you to realize we may not all agree on something, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're right or wrong, but the reasoning behind what we're doing. If we're doing this because we want to get instant results today, they might be a better channel for you. If what you're looking for is a stable, rock-solid system that'll last for years, likely without any problems, so you want to plan ahead to set your foundation, and you don't want to be troubled with having to do unnecessary work and spend money you don't have to spend for repairs you never needed, then I'm going to be more aligned to you. Because businesses don't pay me to solve their problem today. They don't call me on Monday and say, I need you to come out, get us up and running. Then call me on Tuesday and say, come out and get us up and running again. And then call us on Wednesday and say, come out and get us up and running again. Because that would be an indicator that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And the company, they can't afford those kind of losses where they're, some hours of the day they're not able to get any work done. So the question is not how do we fix it today? How do we fix it today to a point where for the foreseeable future, this won't happen again? Like, there's never an absolute, but how do we bring the odds where more than likely we will go for years without any issues? Okay, that's what I do. And do you know why I do that? Because it makes my customers happy. It makes me happy. Customers come back again and again. They refer me. They talk very nicely. I have a customer, every time I see him, he says, we want you to know how much we appreciate all the work you do for us. Like, he says this every time he sees me. He's been seeing me for 20 years. I said, man, I wish every customer was like you. Do you know anybody else like you? Because I really appreciate the opportunity that, you know, when I tell them they need to buy certain hardware, they buy it. They don't question it. If anything, he says, this is too cheap. Are you sure? Because we've got money. Like, we literally had this conversation. We've got money. I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you want to spend more, there won't be any benefit to it, but this is what you need. This is what's going to last for the foreseeable future, unless something's changing. Is anything changing? No. Like, are you going to bring on a bunch of employees or expand the business or anything like that? No. I go, well, based on everything being the way it is, this is all you need to spend. This is going to cover it. It's all you need. One time, you should be good for like a decade. Okay, we just wanted to make sure that, you know, you weren't holding back thinking, you know, budget was an issue. No. And if you insist on spending more money, I can double the price of, you know, we can get overkill equipment if you want to, but I wouldn't. Man, when you can get customers like that, those are the best ones. I'm telling you. That's why we've been together, this business relationship. It's got to be 20 years. If not, it's really close. They enjoy having me. I enjoy having them. It's reciprocal. Everybody's happy, and I have never raised their rate. They're paying me the same today as what they were paying me 20 years ago. They've not offered to pay me more, and I've not asked for any more because I don't want to give them a reason to go somewhere else. And honestly, because they follow my advice, it's the easiest money I ever made. I don't want to give that up. The problems they have are so easy. So what? Maybe I have to drive out there and change a power supply once every 4 years. So what? Maybe I've got to drive out there and change a BIOS to turn TPM on to install Windows 11. It's so rare and infrequent. It's in my best interest to nip it in the bud and keep that easy money coming in, keep the stress level down, keep the customer happy, keep my bills paid, and free up my time to take on other customers. Kind of common sense, right? But if all we're looking at is today, right now, if we're playing chess, there's not a whole lot of thinking ahead. Sorry. If you're playing checkers. If you're playing chess, you're thinking, if you're a good chess player, you're thinking strategy. You're thinking what your opponent's next move might be, what your next move might be. You're thinking several steps ahead. Some people were raised, unfortunately, with parents who never taught them this. There's a lot of people in jail who were playing checkers. When you teach them how to play chess, and there's an actual study on this if you Google it, the prisoners, their mind is blown. Like they were never taught how to think like that. And then they realize when they get out of prison, if they start thinking that way, they stay out of prison. But when all you're doing is living day by day, making it up as you go, well, all I can tell you is, according to the studies I've read, that makes up a lot of incarcerated people, that mentality. When I run my YouTube channel and I'm giving you advice, I'm giving you sort of safe advice that applies universally. I'm not giving you specific advice that applies to you. When I see other content creators making changes that benefit the content creator, but they don't know anything about the people watching, and then the people watching mimic that and don't really understand what the consequences are because the content creator doesn't use their computer for those reasons. So for example, I have a couple of customers that have embroidery machines that plug into their computer. So when they're doing embroidery, the way it works today isn't somebody sitting down with a needle and doing it by hand. They're downloading a piece of software. They can purchase patterns. These modern sewing machines, you can put 5 spools of thread. There's your red, your green, whatever the embroidery pattern calls for. You can preload like up to so many spools of different color. The embroidery machine connects to the computer, and through the software, you load the embroidery pattern. You load the garment onto the sewing machine as needed. It straps in so it can't move. And the software will alert you if there's a problem, like you need to move the garment for, if it's a big piece, or that you've run out of thread, It's just like a printer, okay? It's pretty much just like a printer. Now, somebody's doing this for a living and they're taking these pieces and they're selling them on eBay, or they go to art festivals and they sell, they rent a table and they sell their artwork. This is how they're earning a living. Now they're watching a video talking about replacing thermal paste, or they're watching a video obsessed about computer temperatures, and they say, I wonder how hot my computer runs. And then they look at it. Oh, that's hot. I should do something about it. They don't know what they're doing. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. Long story short, I get a phone call. When can you get over here? It's down. I can't get any work done. I got orders waiting. I am stressed out. I was supposed to ship out 4 orders today. I've been working on this since last night. I am angry and I am frustrated. I'm like, hold on. How did we get here? This isn't to belittle anybody. It's for me to understand. Was there a big storm in the area? Was there some change you made to the computer? One time, a guy who was a painter, you need your house painted, reached out and said, I need your help. All of the text on my screen is all gone. Your screen is on. Yeah. You have a start button? Yeah. And it says start. No. So what does it say? Nothing. What? Hold on. I'm on the phone. You have icons on your desktop? Yeah. But they don't have any words under them. No. If you hover over the system tray in your mouse, you see your cursor? Yeah. And does a little window pop up? Yep. And what's the window say? Nothing. When did this problem start? Yesterday. Everything was working fine. You shut the computer off. You woke up this morning, you turned the computer on. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And here's the thing. I got to send invoices out for all the jobs I just did. I send out my invoices out on Fridays. I can't see any text. They're gone. It's just blank screens. Like, I'm freaking out right now. I can't get paid. Did you make any changes to the computer yesterday? Put any software on, take any software off, do any updates? No. No. So you use the computer as normal, like any other day yesterday. Yep. But this morning when you turned it on, it's different. Yep. Well, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going to need to see it. So I get the computer, bring it back to my bench, and I turn it on. Now this is probably Windows XP, Windows 98. This was a number of years ago, but this is an absolutely 100% true story. And I also need you to know that I've worked on thousands of computers in my career, and I've never seen this before, and I've never seen it since. So this information isn't really going to help you to fix any problems you're likely ever going to see, but the reason I'm telling it is to explain to you that once you understand the proper critical thinking diagnostic technique, it's irrelevant to say, well, how did that happen? It doesn't matter how it happened, right? At this point now, we just need to get it fixed. The reason we ask, if you made any changes, it's going to help get us to the fix quicker. If I know what they changed, that's the first thing I'm going to try is to unchange their change, to undo it. But if they won't give me a clue, and they're like, no, based on the information provided by that customer, I got nothing to start my diagnostic on except maybe a video driver. So I get the machine, I turn it on, and sure enough, it's exactly what he describes. Exactly. There's a start button, but it doesn't say start like it normally does. There's icons with no words under them. If you open up Notepad and type, nothing appears on the screen. So I take the mouse in Notepad and I drag it over where I just wrote text, and it's all there. Once you highlight it, you can see it. I start thinking, maybe he changed the colors, the themes, and he set his background color and his text color to the same color. And why no engineer at Microsoft ever thought to add one line of code that said, if this number equals this number, go, no, you can't do that. If your text color matches your background color, it's literally one line of code to reject that and say you can't do it. But I guess even the engineers that wrote Windows, the team of really intelligent engineers, never thought of this. So I go into display settings. Now I can't, when I right click, I can't see anything. So I'm looking at the position, like I got to go to the very bottom position to properties and the display settings open, and it's all just, there's no text in it. So I'm looking at my computer and I'm doing the same steps, okay? And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4 down, desktop theme, default, click OK. Which one is OK? I can't tell. It's the third from the left at the very bottom, third from the left bottom, OK. Boom, everything's back to normal. One of the fastest fixes I've ever done. Restart the computer, everything looks like it should. Call the customer. So I'm looking at your computer, and just to confirm, you didn't make any changes yesterday. No, didn't make any changes. I said, is there any chance maybe you were playing around with wallpaper or background colors? Oh yeah, I was. I go, well, what you did is you set your wallpaper color and your font color to the same color. So you cannot separate the text from the background. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. That's all it is. So if he would have just left it alone, I don't know what he was trying to fix. I don't know why that color and font was all good up until yesterday. He decided it wasn't good anymore. Voluntarily self-inflicted his own injury. I said, I got to call you. I got to charge you for the service call, man. I got the drive back and forth. I mean, I feel bad about it because it wasn't like it took a whole lot of skill or talent. But I got time in this. I got to bill you for it. And I understand, and I would expect to pay you. Some people wouldn't have responded that way. And that knowledge to check for that has not benefited me one iota. Never before and never since have I ever seen that problem. So when people say, well, how do I prevent this in the future? Don't do things you don't absolutely need to do if that computer is important to you. If you need to send out invoices tomorrow and you don't get paid, before you make any changes to that computer, I want you to think for a minute, is what I'm about to do worth the risk? Because if I leave it alone, it's probably going to operate fine tomorrow. If I change it today because I want to change my wallpaper, is that something I want to do the day before billing? Maybe I should do that after the billing, and that way if anything gets screwed up, I'm just changing wallpaper, but nonetheless, that's usually how it is. Well, I'm just changing thermal paste. Is how the phone call begins for service. All I was doing was making a change that should not have done that. Well, yeah, no, that change did exactly what you told it to do. Well, if I'd have known that, okay, well, that's not a computer problem. That's a user problem. And if the users understand there could be consequences from any change, no matter how simple the user thinks it is, that doesn't mean it actually is simple. Just because the user has got a certain frame of mind doesn't make it so. So the default should be, I'm not going to make any unnecessary changes unless I have time to deal with unexpected consequences. If I don't have time to deal with those unexpected consequences, this change will happen later. If everything's been running fine all this time, what changed today that suddenly now I got a bug that I can't go on with my life until I make this unnecessary change that was never ever necessary in the history of owning the computer? All of a sudden now I got to change the wallpaper. Do you? Is it that important? You got billing that's got to go out tomorrow? How about this? Let's make a deal. You get your billing out tomorrow. Once that's done and you want to play, then play. Because if your billing's going out once every few days or once a week, then we're not under a panic if anything goes wrong. Now, more than likely, it won't go wrong. I said this only happened once that I've ever been made aware of. One customer, one time, never seen before, never seen again. But there's still a risk when you make a change, and that change is absolutely not required. Ask yourself, if this turns out to not be as simple as I thought it was going to be, how will that impact me tomorrow? Forget about thinking about today. What do you have to do tomorrow? If you're like, oh, I got nothing going on, have at it. Okay? Knock yourself out. Make your backup. You got time to make the backup, and then you can always fall back on the backup as a safety net. Would you jump on a flying trapeze without a safety net, or will you fall to the ground and become paralyzed? It's potential. Well, I've never fallen to the ground before. Only takes once. Wouldn't you rather have a safety net you didn't need than not have a safety net you did need? It's very little expense, very little time to set one up. And if you don't use it, what harm did it cause? If everybody listened to what I'm saying, I'd be out of a job. Or, everybody with a computer, follow the advice I give. There'd be no reason to call me, except, when a drive fails, when there's an actual hardware failure. But I wouldn't generate enough work to be able to stay employed from that. Picard says, greetings, Carey. I got a job doing remote tech support, saving up money to start my own computer repair shop. Any suggestions? I live in Michigan. Well, the best thing I can do is tell you to look around at your competitors in your local area for the kind of services they offer and what they charge, and see if you can offer other services they don't do for the same or less money. Every area is different. Even in Michigan, Detroit is very different from Grand Rapids, which is very different from Traverse City. So the kind of work that's needed there and the cost of living varies, and you need to adjust and accommodate to your environment. That's it. And the best way to get started, in my opinion, is just look at what the people that are already doing it are doing, and more importantly, identify what they're not doing. That's it. It's not just a matter of price. It's a matter of offering services they don't offer. And when you can do that, you probably got a successful business on your hands. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Frank Jimmy said, every so often I get calls from clients whose computers get set to high contrast mode. They swear they didn't do anything. The computer somehow got that way. Not sure I believe them. For a while, Frank, the Intel video driver allows you to rotate the screen with a hotkey. It was like Alt, maybe Shift Alt right key, and the screen would rotate to the right. Shift Alt up key, up arrow. You remember? And then my screen's upside down. I didn't press anything. And the end user did accidentally fat finger the keyboard, and it rotated the screen. And the first time I got that call, I'm like, no, that's just not a thing. So I didn't say that. I think what I said was, it's sideways? It's upside down. It just went upside down. How was that even possible? When those calls come in, I need to see it. I need to see it in person. Show this to me. Because I think maybe you're hanging from the ceiling. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But then these days you've got Google, and you can say screen is upside down, and there's the shift up arrow, whatever it is. And it probably took me half an hour to figure that out. But then I had other customers call with the exact same problem, probably a half dozen times. And right when I'm on the phone, I hit shift, whatever the key was. Sometimes I'd have to Google it because I still don't remember. It doesn't happen often enough. And then I said, okay, from now on, when I'm installing the Intel video driver, I'm disabling the default that says to turn on the hotkeys. I am turning that off. I always just click with install defaults, and usually that works great. But I got bit by that once with this Intel video driver, and I must have had at least 6 calls come in from different customers at different times. And the first time really threw me, but the second time and any time after that, it was a pretty easy answer. I think at some point I was starting to log in remotely and fix it for them, and one of the parts of my fix was to go into the settings and turn off the hotkey. Because every time I didn't do it, well, you didn't knowingly do it. I had a customer recently say, when I open my folders now, none of the pictures appear. I get a broken icon where normally you get the little thumbnail of a directory that has photos in it. Did you change anything? No. So it's been working for 10 years, whatever it's been. Yeah, it's never done this before. Nope. Anybody else in the office having this problem? Nope. Just you. Uh-huh. It was working fine yesterday. Uh-huh. But you changed nothing. You didn't install anything? Nope. You didn't remove anything? Nope. You didn't change anything? Nope. Somebody put that computer into performance mode, meaning you go to your system properties, advanced settings, system performance, adjust for best performance. When you make that change, it disables thumbnails because it affects your resources. So I go, listen, and I'm just going to be straight up with you. This isn't a change that happens on its own. And I'm not saying you made the change. Somebody did this. Now, whether or not they knew they did it, I can't tell you. But I'm going to show you. And I logged in remotely, and I just went to the view settings. And one of the first options under the view options, if you look at it, it says only show icons instead of thumbnails. And you just uncheck that box, so it's the opposite. If you want the thumbnails, you uncheck the box. Click OK, all the picture thumbnails came back again. And you know what the follow-up question is. How did that happen? So I was nipping that in the bud by saying, just so you know, this does not happen by itself. If everybody in the office had this, you could say, well, it's a Windows update or a software update. No, it's just you. Okay. This one time, nobody's ever seen this problem before. It's never happened before. And no one uses that computer but this employee. And this employee's been working there for years. They're not dumb. But anybody can inadvertently press a key, or maybe they installed some software or were adjusting some settings in software that said, do you want to improve the performance? Somehow they got into the performance area. And the reason I say that is it wasn't just that the icons were showing instead of the thumbnails. There are a bunch of other features that are turned off in order to improve performance. And I just left. I just like, that's it. Nothing else needs to be adjusted. So why they did that, I don't, and we'll never know. And it's never happened to them before, and it hasn't happened since. But somebody's making a change, and this company isn't supposed to do that. They're supposed to reach out to me before they make changes, including installing any software, removing any software. If your computer seems like it's not fast enough, they should be calling me and asking me to resolve that for them. They should not try to fix this on their own. I don't go over to their place and do their job. I don't say, here, let me help you with your accounting or your legal work. I'm not a paralegal. So let me do what I do so you can do what you do. That's how it works. And you do what you do because you're representing people who don't do it for themselves. If you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, you're doing the work. Other people could do their own accounting. They could study the law. They don't want to. They just want to hire you. So why don't you do that? Let me do what I do, and we'll all get along. Stay in your lane. But they swear they did not knowingly make any changes. And I'm not aware of any hotkey that turns performance mode. It's not worth discussing, right? I just tell them it can't happen by itself. It didn't happen to anybody else but you. You're the only one that sits here. But, you know, maybe somebody came in when you weren't looking and made a change for some reason. I don't know. But it's fixed now, and if it happens again, let me know, and have a nice day. But in my mind, I'm thinking something else entirely. And I don't want to offend anybody. But their refusal to accept responsibility gets under my skin. Like, their response could have been, I did that? How did I do that? I'm not sure, but you did it. Right? I'm just saying the computer didn't do it. Your software didn't do it. It didn't happen to anybody else. It just happened to you. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Like, if that was their reaction, it happens to all of us. It's not a big deal. But when they're like, no, I absolutely did not, and they get offended that you would make such a suggestion, I just button my lip and I keep it to myself. That's how you keep the customer. Barry Klein joins us and says hello. Paul O'Brien just renewed membership for now 25 months. He says, yay, 25 months served. I just have to do another 75 years. I'll see you in the yard. Thank you, Paul. Wow, I'm missing a lot in the chat. I apologize. Let me see what I've been missing here. I'm going to go back a little ways, so bear with me as I'm just now seeing this stuff. Scott says hello. Arnold Schmidt said, I appreciate Carey for all his knowledge and experience to try and help out folks in chat resolve their technical issues and to expose the bad products being floated in the marketplace. His reviews are #1. Man, I wish everybody thought like you, Arnold. Thank you. I mean, I don't have a hidden agenda. I mean, it's my truth. It may not be somebody else's truth, but it's 100% from my perspective, my truth. All right, let me try and scroll through this really quickly. I'm really behind. Versus Electronic Repair says, I have a Corsair Carbide 200R case. Yeah, it's a great case to have in a business build. You know, if you want to build a computer for a business, it's a very ideal case for that scenario. Not too many home users want those. The home users want all the RGB and the lights. Chris says, for some reason, my phone likes to send messages before I finish them. You could have a faulty touchscreen. One thing you can do is, if you haven't, get some screen cleaner and give that screen a good cleaning, because something could be on it. I have a Corsair Carbide 200R that fries motherboards. There's no such thing. Cases and motherboards. You might as well say I've got a Corsair 200R that causes my car to run out of gas or gives me flat tires. They're completely unrelated. No such thing. But if it makes you feel good to think that, I mean, whatever gets you through the day, man. J.M. Bieber said, you do awesome work, Carey. I used to fix and build custom PCs, but I got tired of dealing with people. Yeah, well, thankfully, most people, the vast majority of people, are a pleasure to work with. The only examples I typically give here are ones that stand out. I mean, you have to consider, if I told you about every repair I did, I could never get through all of it. I'd lose track. If I talked about this, I've done so many, I couldn't even count them. But I can count the ones I remember, and there's a reason why I remember them. I'd have customers that say, this is true, They go, hey, do you remember me? You built a computer for me 7 years ago. I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are. Well, it's been a great computer. Sometimes they'll keep going. Yeah, I'm the guy who wanted the CPU and the motherboard. Yeah, that doesn't help me, but and sometimes they keep trying. I'm like, hold on, stop. I said, if I don't remember who you are because I built your computer such a long time ago and you've never had a problem with it, you've never had any reason to reach out to me for 7 years, that's a good thing. Because it's usually the people who piss me off are the ones I remember. Now, why are you calling? Like they'll spend the whole entirety of the beginning of the phone call just trying to get me to remember who they are. And I'm like, you trust me not remembering who you are is a good thing. I mean, unless you're coming back often buying more computers. I sold you a computer once 7 years ago, and I'm happy to talk to you, and I don't remember who you are, but besides that, how can I help you today? You know, I'm glad you came back. Thank you. What can I do for you? And usually when I do see them face to face, that light bulb turns on. I go, oh, I remember who you are now. Yeah, that happens a lot. Rick Lakes joins us and says hello. So hello to our friend Rick Lakes out there in Minnesota. Ro Hammer says, do you guys have a friend or know someone who's always late? I used to. I was going to expand on that, but I think I should just stop. Not anymore. My attitude is this. You ever been to the airport? You need to board your plane by a certain time. If you arrive just as they close the door to the plane, even though the plane is still there, it hasn't left, you can see it through the window. And you're like, I just got here. I just need to get on that. No, we've already closed the door. Yeah, but it's still on the ground. Sorry, we're not opening the door. Once the door is closed, it's too late. You'll have to wait. We'll get you on the next flight out. Yeah, but it won't change anything. Nothing's going to change. You're getting angry and upset. They're getting angry and upset that you won't listen. They are not opening the door. You should have been here earlier. That plane has a schedule to keep. You weren't on time. You're going to have to wait for the next one. We'll get you on the next available flight. It's not our fault. Well, I treat people the same way. Somebody says they're going to be here at a certain time. And I understand 10 minutes, 15 minutes, one way or the other, right? And I'll tell you who's really punctual. If Mitch Morrison says he's going to be there at 2 o'clock, he's always there. If anything, early. And at the latest, exactly 2 o'clock. It's a great quality to find in somebody. Admirable, noble, man of his word. Respect that. What you say versus what you do. But if I tell you that we're going to dinner at this restaurant at 6:30, we'll meet you there, and you ain't there by 6:45, we're ordering food and we're eating without you. I'm not going to wait for you to arrive. I'm not going to be considerate for somebody who's not considerate to me. I'm ordering my food. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't order it 15 minutes earlier because you're still not here. Maybe you're never going to show up. I made an appointment with a guy to do some work for me. I said, well, when can you be out here? We set a date, a time. He doesn't show. No text, no message. I go, hey, did you forget we had an appointment today? Oh, sorry about that. I was hung up at another customer. I couldn't get out of there on time. You could have texted me to tell me that. So when's your next availability? Tomorrow. Great. Same time tomorrow? Same time tomorrow. Understandable, things happen. I'll see you tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Tomorrow, time comes and goes. I text him. Did we not have an appointment today at 2 o'clock? Am I, missing something? No answer. 8 o'clock at night, my phone beeps with a message response. Sorry, it was my wife's birthday, I forgot. We just got back from a date. So you've been on a date since you woke up this morning, realized it was your wife's birthday, and you couldn't just send a text going, right then when you realized it was your wife's birthday, hey, Carey, forgot it was my wife's birthday today. Let's reschedule. No, you just kept your mouth silent. You've been busy all day. You couldn't do this. Couldn't excuse yourself to the restroom and just send me a message? What did I do to you? I've been waiting here all day for you. I postponed my own plans for you. Okay, so yesterday your customer kept you later than you were expecting. I understand. Today you forgot it was your wife's birthday for the whole day. You spent it with your wife and you couldn't text me back. Okay, see, this is called benefit of the doubt. When is your next availability? Sunday. Great. Sunday, 2 o'clock. You're going to be here. Yes. Wonderful. Now it's 2 o'clock and he's not here. At 2:01, I message him. I guess you're not showing up today. Oh, sorry, something came up. How about Tuesday? I said, you know what? I'm not sure about Tuesday. Let me look into it and I'll call you back. He says, okay. Never spoken to him since. I was trying to hire him. I was trying to give him some money. But I'm not, where's the consideration? You think I'm just sitting here all day and, oh, you're just going to stop by and I'm going to be here? Yeah, good luck with that. If I don't schedule you in, I'm likely not here, or I'm busy doing something else. I could be at a client's doing work. I could be running errands. I could be whatever, right? I could have company. Not a good time. So I think I was more than generous, 3 chances in a row. And not even the first appointment, like to even look and talk about the work I needed done and negotiate a price, we never even got that far. So if that's the way he's going to be with an appointment, what kind of work do you think he's going to do? I want the work done. If I wanted it to just sit and wait, that's what I'm doing now. I don't need anybody's help to procrastinate. I'm an expert. I'd do it for free. How are we on time here? What are we at? Hour and a half. All right, so what's interesting is when I ask people if there's any problems that they're trying to resolve with their computer. My computer's slow. Every time I click this, it crashes. This device I bought isn't working. All these questions we used to get. I'm trying to network these computers and they won't see each other. For about 2 years now, it's very rare for anybody to ask about any real problems. And I don't know if it's because they truly don't have any, or they're too embarrassed to ask, or they're afraid that it's going to make them look stupid. And the thing is I want to be able to help a lot of people. So if you're having an issue and we're able to help you with it, and anybody who watches this video who is also having the same issue, who we would never know, is able to resolve it. And unless they told us, we could be helping hundreds of people, but it starts with you having an actual issue. But when people, they just want to make stuff up and talk about, we mentioned the other day, would Batman beat Superman in a fight? Man, It's sort of like you have somebody in the industry for over 30 years in this industry, not in the comic book industry. Why would you think, when you have that ability to talk to somebody in that field with a related question, why that wouldn't be a golden opportunity for you to get an answer from a reputable source on that specific subject matter? And so it gets a little frustrating when I do say, does anybody have any questions? And I'm referring to tech support, and there's just nothing. And then the questions that come across are like completely unrelated to computers. And I don't mind it so much as what bothers me is how many people are waiting for me to finish talking to ask their technical question as I'm answering something completely unrelated. And how much interest are we losing in viewers who came here for tech support, to witness it, hoping maybe they could learn something, and we're not even discussing any tech support issues. So maybe the time has passed. I mean, maybe now there's just no need for it. And if that's the case, we move on. We will focus our video content. If everybody wants to ask questions about Batman versus Superman, maybe we just need to do a video on that. And we can all speculate about nonsense and fiction. I mean, I'm not sure I want to, but if that's what gets viewers and gets the community engaged, I mean, that's a good thing. But on the other hand, anybody can do that. Not just anybody. Has 35 years, 34 years in this industry. And to not talk about it, to not take advantage of that, I don't know. As a viewer, I'd be, look, if I have the ability to talk to a real attorney for free, an actual lawyer who's offering free advice from a real lawyer, I'm not going to ask him who he thinks is going to win in a fight between Batman and Superman. It wouldn't even occur to me. And nobody would do that if they were paying for the advice. This is only something that comes with offering it for free. What's your hourly rate? $475 an hour. There you go. It's $500. Now, say there's Batman. I just don't think that's going to happen. All right. Let's see. Casselbrecht says, I just bought a 2022 model Asus ZenBook with Windows 11. I just bought a 3-year-old laptop. You bought a used laptop? Is that what you're saying? The computer seemed to have been factory reset by the pawn shop. Oh, there it is. Okay. I've attempted to update Windows, but I keep getting an error. 800-73712. J.M. Bieber said, I would just do a fresh install of Windows. Who knows what was done to it? I'm on board with that answer. And we've got videos that walk you right through it. You can back up your drivers for free using a command line prompt that we have a video that shows you how to do. You create your own Windows 11 installation media, which we have a video that shows you how to do it, getting it directly from Microsoft so you know it's genuine. You wipe the computer entirely during the Windows setup and installation, as though it were being installed for the very first time. Then you restore the drivers you backed up, and then you configure it back the way you want it with all your Windows updates, check for updates. And you're good to go. One and done. Real easy. Cost you a little bit of time. And the knowledge you'll gain from it, from having done it, will be far better than the knowledge you'll gain from watching somebody else do it or trying to repair something that you have no idea what they did. Because they might not have just done one thing. They might have done 1,000 different things, and you're going to sit there and pick it out, 1,000 little things out of a heaping pile. Just wipe that pile out, start a new pile. That's all I'm saying. But we have videos that cover that. You back up your drivers. You don't have to back up the drivers. I mean, you could always do the fresh install of Windows 11 by following our guide on how to make the Windows 11 installer legitimately, follow our guide on how to install it clean, and then go to the ASUS support page for that laptop and download the drivers from there. It's another way to do it. But at least then you're starting with a solid foundation. You don't have to wonder what else, what if it's used. I wouldn't trust it. Maybe it's got spyware on it. Barry Klein said, Windows update error, and he names the error. It could be due to corrupted system files. Yeah, another reason, you just wipe it and reinstall it. Rather than try and figure out why, it takes too long. And you might not really know that you got it all. So just the only way you can guarantee it quickly, efficiently, is to do it yourself. Wipe it, reset it. That's what I would do. It's way faster. And you shouldn't have any negative consequences, surprising you down the road. Bill Sony wants to know, when I get those calls, do I use UltraView log computer? No, I don't look at computer logs. So I think what a lot of people don't understand, or they don't realize, is I didn't just learn how to do this job 10 years ago. When I started in this job, I'm going to sound like an old man, we used to have to know stuff. We used to have to remember stuff. We used to have to use our brains and think about critically what the problem was and what could be causing it, because there was no such thing as a log. There weren't error diagnostic segmented displays on motherboards. You'd get some beeps, and oftentimes the beeps weren't right. The beeps might be beeping that you have no video card detected, but that's because you had a bad RAM module. So it was this kind of stuff that I learned very, very early on was a complete waste of my time. Because when you think about it logically, if a computer knows what's wrong with it, why does it need you to fix it? Why can't it just fix itself? If there was a tool that I could plug in that could tell me what was wrong with the computer, why would I have a job? And by the way, who made the tool? Where did that come from? You have to understand that as human beings, we are way more capable of complex thought because we have imagination and experience. A computer can only tell you what it's already been told. It can't really make anything up unless it's AI. But up until AI, computers didn't hallucinate. What you put in is what you get out. And if you never put it in to begin with, it ain't coming out. How did it get in there? A human put it in there. How did the human know to put it in there? The human did the work. How do we have books? Any book on any subject, especially educational books. Somebody had to figure it out. And when they figured it out, and they tested it and proved it was right, they wrote it down. So anybody else didn't have to figure it out. So if you want to learn how to become a surgeon, you don't have to experiment on people. It's already been done and documented. On the other hand, if you're trying to cure cancer, we haven't figured that out yet. So there's plenty of work for you to do if that's what you want to do. There's plenty of diseases waiting for cures, from Parkinson's and Alzheimer's to diabetes, and you name it. We're waiting for somebody to figure that out. One of them. There's plenty to choose from. There's no shortage. On the other hand, if you just want to do the work, then you follow what's already been experienced by the people before you that led to the books. So if what you're doing is looking at logs to tell you what's wrong, how do you know the logs are right? If the computer isn't working, then how do you know the logs are accurate? So you're telling me you have a computer that's having a problem, that's writing its own logs. You really thinking this through? and you believe the broken computer writing its logs, that there's nothing broken about the accuracy of the logs, that the logs are correct, but the rest of the computer doesn't work, just the logging part? How does that make any sense? It's broken. There's no tool you can plug into it. There's no log you're going to read that 100% of the time is going to point you to the right answer any faster than simply using your brain, critical thinking skills, and, as Sherlock would say, the process of deduction in order to determine what's working. If we know what's working, that leaves what's not working. When they asked Thomas Edison, he's trying to create a commercial, long-lasting light bulb. He didn't invent the light. The light bulb was invented like 50 years earlier. It would only last for like 15 seconds. So he wanted to commercialize mass production of a light bulb. Nobody had ever done it. Needed something longer lasting, cheap to produce. And it wasn't just him. He hired people and paid them to do the work. He took all the credit for it. So he didn't invent the light bulb. Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile. He didn't even invent the assembly line. Henry Ford did invent the 8-hour workday. But regardless, these people are known because nobody done it so successfully before. So they asked Thomas Edison, you've tested 1,000 ways a light bulb does not work. Doesn't that frustrate you? Doesn't that make you want to give up? He goes, no, because if I know 1,000 ways it doesn't work, then I'm getting closer to finding the way it does work. We know we're making progress. When SpaceX launches a rocket that blows up, what do they always say? We're going to collect the data from this malfunction, figure out what went wrong from it, so we can improve it and make it better next time. So even when it fails, we're still benefiting from understanding why it failed. If somebody breaks into your house because you never lock your rear door, and they steal something where you're away, and you come home and you see your doors open and some things are missing, they kind of did you a favor. Now you know you better lock that door. Because the next time somebody walks in, it might be while you're home, and they might cause harm to you or your loved ones. So by them doing this to you, if you look at it from the right way, they're pointing out holes that you need to plug. And if all you had was a little leak, thank God it didn't sink the entire ship. You catch that early. When we're diagnosing a computer, we're figuring out, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm figuring out what does work. I'm taking out the RAM. I'm taking out the power supply. Saying, okay, does this change if I put a different power supply on, one at a time, does anything change? No. Okay, it's not the power supply. How many components are there in a computer? Motherboard, RAM, storage, CPU, power supply. That's it. That's all there is. I mean, the case is never going to cause a problem unless you've grounded something out against it, which is possible. So we can take the motherboard out of the case. We can disconnect anything that's not required for the system to start. No printers, no flash drives, no speakers, no Bluetooth, none of it. No Wi-Fi, anything just to boot the computer. So motherboard, power supply, keyboard, mouse, and even then the keyboard and mouse isn't entirely necessary. Does it boot? Okay. What if we swap the RAM? Does it boot? If everything's staying the same, everything you've swapped is perfectly fine, leaving only what's left. When you get down to the CPU and motherboard, that's pretty much it. You don't usually change one without the other. It's typically not cost effective. Otherwise, it'd still be under warranty. So if you're going to have to change the CPU, you're probably going to have to change the motherboard and vice versa. And I see more bad motherboards than bad CPUs, like by far, 100 to 1. So my default, something's wrong with the board. Why? I don't know, don't care. Board's like 100, 200 bucks, whatever it is, get a new board in. We put the equivalent CPU in it, depending if it's AMD or Intel. If it's AMD, it's no big deal to keep the same chip. If it's Intel, it might cost you $400 for a motherboard that's compatible with an older Intel chip because they don't make them. There's not many to pick from, supply and demand. Versus buying a brand new motherboard with a brand new chip, could be less. Could Could be $300 for a brand new motherboard and chip on the Intel side. Could be. Plug it all back in, send it out. They go, well, you didn't really fix anything. Well, that's how we fix in the United States. When you get your car worked down, you need a water pump or an alternator, the mechanic's not rebuilding it. The mechanic's going to take your mechanic, and this has been my whole life, by the way, this is nothing new. Even in the 1970s, the mechanic will take the bad part, diagnose which part is bad, vacuum advance, distributor cap. We're not refurbishing distributor caps. Maybe they'll resurface your rotors. Maybe they just throw new rotors on. We're not resurfacing the brake material on the brake pads. We just buy new brake pads. That's the work. And the reason we do it that way in the United States is it's faster. We can help more customers in less time and save them a lot of money. And then what we do is we load up all those alternators and all those water pumps that can be rebuilt, and we ship those to a company, and that's what they do. They'll have another company in India or somewhere where the labor's really cheap, and they send all these water pumps and these alternators over there and have them rebuilt. Then they'll buy them back and they'll sell them at the auto parts stores as renewed. And they'll give it a warranty. They don't really test them. They go through a basic quality control check, but you go through the process of doing the work yourself only to find out the part you've got is bad. They'll gladly exchange it for another one. And you're like, but I spent 3 hours taking this off, putting it on, taking it back off again, and now I got to put another one. Yeah, well, DIY, man, that's what you signed up for. They're not going to make it hard for you to return it. They'll happily return it, but they're not reimbursing you for all the time and effort, especially like with a water pump, and you got to take the whole front of the car off on some cars. Put the water pump in, put it all back together again, and you find it's leaking or it's not working correctly, and you've got to take the whole thing back apart, take the water pump back into the store, say, I need another one, no problem. You know, you got your water pump, you got your receipt, here's your new one, have a nice day. And you can do the whole work again. Or you can just take it to the mechanic, let them deal with it, and you just pay them some money, and I want it done quick. I'm not sitting here waiting for you to rebuild my water pump. Throw another one on it, get me out of here, let's go. I'm not gonna spend 10 hours paying you for labor on a $100 part. You're out of your mind. Let's go. Got other things to do, and they have other things to do. And this is the way repair works in America. We don't really fix anything unless what you have is, you know, multiple thousands of dollars that would be worthwhile to invest that kind of repair money. So, you know, if it's $3,000 to repair it and $14,000 to replace it, we're going to do the repair. But if it's $3,000 to replace it, to repair it, but it's only $700 to just swap it out, why in the world would you want to pay more and wait longer? Some people, because the videos are worldwide, they don't live in a culture where they even imagine that. Like, it's not even a thing. They're like, you do what now? Yeah, that's how it works here. And so they go, well, that's not repair. Yeah, we're still doing the work. Absolutely. Roe Hammer said, for my part, even 24H2, which again, some people say is the worst version yet, I've had no issues with it. I guess you can't trust anything anyone says on the internet. I've said it before, I'll say it again. 24H2 is the single most solid version of Windows Microsoft has ever released. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I've never seen anything like 24H2 with regard to how successful it is. Whether it's a fresh install or an update, I've never seen one fail unless the computer has bad components. And I want to reiterate, I have never seen Windows 11 24H2 fail to install, whether it's a fresh install or an upgrade. It is the single most stable, most reliable version of Windows Microsoft
has ever released. I am not a fan of Microsoft. When they do something I don't agree with, I'm very vocal about it. But when they do something that admittedly is outstanding and sets a new precedent for reliability, ease of use, well, I'm going to call them out on that too. Now, there are people on the internet that think I'm 10 feet tall and I weigh 4,000 pounds. Those are people on the internet. They may not even be real people. You might be looking at the work of bots. They may not even be people. And that's what you have to understand. You're assuming those are people. But when they're making such preposterous claims, you should seriously consider that's not a real person. You shouldn't try and argue with a bot. It's a waste of your time. And if they're not a bot, I'd still consider them to be the same as a bot. And I would treat it the same. It's a very easy solution. Just default to these are bots. Somebody says I'm not a bot. Hey, that's what a bot would say. You see, that's the game they're playing. So when you play their game back at them, whether they're real or they're a bot, it's the same. They're getting a taste of their own medicine. So rather than engage in a pointless discussion with a bot, just ignore them and don't give anything they say any weight. It carries no weight. They're a bot. They might be a human bot. They're still a bot. So when you see information from a bot, treat it as information from a bot. You're going to change a bot's mind? Don't waste your time. When the bots tell you I'm 10 feet tall and 4,000 pounds, does that count as maybe? Maybe they got it? No, it's complete nonsense. Why would you engage with it? Ultimately, your own experience should be your own gauge. So if somebody says, Windows 11 24H2 is the worst operating system I've ever installed, it crashes all the time, it's unreliable, and yet I've installed Windows 11 24H2, it's got to, if we're not at 1,000 times now, I don't know, it's got to be at least halfway there at a very minimal between new installs and upgrades I've done and will continue to do, and have never, ever had one fail. Not once, unless there was a computer problem. Who am I going to believe? What I actually experienced, or what this other random person online is stating that might be a bot? So I eat at restaurants where there are Yelp reviews going, this is the worst restaurant. The food was cold, the service was terrible, and it was too expensive. That's not the restaurant I ate at. Where I ate, the service was great, the people were friendly, the food was hot and delicious. If anything, I couldn't eat it right away. I had to wait for it to cool down. And when the bill came, it was less than I expected it to be. I love it when I see a 1-star review, especially on Amazon, and they go, this thing is great, I love it. They don't even know how the review system works. Why did you leave 1 star and have nothing but compliments? Nothing prevents anybody from leaving a review. And there's items people list for sale. If you look on like Craigslist or especially Facebook Marketplace, and they don't know how the phone works. So they're like, here's a picture. I'm selling whatever it is. I'm selling a wedding ring. And there's the picture of somebody's forehead in their hair. Like they knowingly posted that. They don't understand how the photo preview looks. They don't understand how, okay, this is what your ad's going to look like. Do you want to submit it? They're not getting it. There's a guy who makes Facebook Reels video. His name is Nobody Cares, Anthony. And he's got that kind of New Jersey, no, sorry, he's got that Boston accent. Where he's It's just funny the way he does it. He's like, can we go through what some of my viewers have been sending me, please? And viewers send him pictures of signs and advertisements that are hilarious. And it's a great source of entertainment. And the videos are all real short. I don't know if he's on YouTube. The dude is hilarious. And everything he's showing you is real. Nobody cares, Anthony. Yeah. All right. So I'm looking at the previews, and it's I haven't. He's got tons and tons of content, and it's freaking hilarious. Let's see if I can turn my my window capture on. There he is. Somebody's got a sign on the back of their SUV: legalize marinara. There's sting beans. I'm not exactly sure what this is. No belly laughing. I'm not sure. It's obviously in another country. Oh, here we go. We bring this one up. I bust my hands up all day so hers can look like this. So he's got to make a comment, right? And his narration is hilarious. There's just no winning in this life. I accept defeat. What's the bottom of this plate say? Here's a guy's dating profile photo. It's just a picture of his forehead and his hair. And anyway, his commentary makes it even funnier. Caution, deaf dog on board. He's like, what am I supposed to do as another driver on the road? How does that change what am I supposed to be doing differently as another driver because you have a deaf dog in your car? I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? And a shredder. Antique Alphabet Book 1908, and there's a picture of an older lady trying to take a picture of the book that she's selling, and this is what she posts. All right, how do you know that those people that say Windows 11 24H2 or whatever they're saying that doesn't match your experience is anybody who even understands how the technology works to even have a reasonable expectation of how it should work? This person that can't even operate their phone can probably leave a message about how terrible their phone is. You don't know who's posting the content. So therefore, the source of the content is very, very important, or you shouldn't take it seriously. And there's evidence. This guy's busy. He makes a lot of content. All right, let me come back over here. You should subscribe to that guy. His videos are like a minute long, and you'll want to watch one after the other, and buckle yourself in if you don't fall out of your seat laughing. Love that guy. Nobody cares, Anthony, and you can find him on Facebook Reels as well. He's probably on Instagram and TikTok for all I know. Rohammer's asking about the keyboard. If you look on my channel, the manufacturer, I don't know if you can see the name of, well, you probably can't see the name of it, but it's made by a company called Gravistar. So if you just type in CareyHolzman space Gravistar, G-R-A-V like Victor, A star, all one word, you'll see my original review. You can also find it on Amazon and see what other people have to say. I don't know what keys it has. I never care about that. When I learned how to type, it was on a mechanical typewriter. You had muscles in your fingers to push those down. The harder you push down the key, the harder it strikes the paper. And especially if you had carbon paper. We were so happy when the IBM Selectric electric typewriter came out that it was so easy to type. No one no one in my lifetime had I ever met that said, if only these keys could be a little softer. Like, it was so incredible. So these days, to have a computer keyboard, whether it's a membrane, mechanical, cherry, whatever, I don't care. I really do not care. And if you said, what do you think of that keyboard? I have no thoughts. It's a keyboard. That's what it is. I don't have such delicate, sensitive fingers that it matters to me which key switches it has. It is not important to me. And I couldn't tell you, you could put 5 of them in a row and ask me which ones are better than others. I'm like, they all, you push them down and the letter appears. I don't know how that could be any more. That's not good enough. I just didn't live in that world, man. So I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't care. I've tried different switches and I don't know what drugs people are on. I don't know how you can be that sensitive to feeling that, but I guess if you are, but I'm the wrong guy to talk to about it. You know, it's like people that want to wear certain shoes for running or any sort of performance enhancement where I feel like it doesn't matter what shoes Michael Jordan is wearing, you know? It doesn't matter who makes the basketball. He is good at playing basketball regardless of what he's wearing. I think if you're good at gaming or you're good at typing, it doesn't matter what keyboard you're using. But that's just me. That's the way I see it. I don't believe in pay to win. The idea that if you spend more money, you're more likely to win is so against everything I was raised in my morals and ethics. That's not a game I want to play. If you can beat me in a game strictly because you have more money worth of equipment, I don't want to play the game anymore. If you level the playing field, and that's what I liked about arcade games, that was the big attraction. You didn't get to move it to the left or the right because you were right-handed or left-handed. You didn't get to pick the quality of the buttons. Every arcade was built with the same hardware. Or if you were playing Galaga at one arcade and you were playing Galaga at another arcade, aside from a few owner modification configuration options, like if you got 3 lives or 5 lives for a quarter, it was the same game. It was at the same height. The controls were in the same place with the same controls, exactly the same. If I drove in the car to the other side of the country and played a Galaga machine, you know, in Coney Island, it would be the exact same machine, the same height, the same controls, the same distance, the same screen, the same frames per second. And how you identify which player is better than another player was on skill alone. That's it. If you were short and you had to look up, if you were tall and you had to look down, deal with it. The game was the same for everybody. I just feel like that's where real talent can be seen. If you can buy a fancier Galaga machine with customized controls, we're not playing the same game anymore. I don't want to play that game. That's just a money spending game. Anybody can spend money. That's not talent. Wayne Lawrence says, in 2025, is Intel or AMD the best way to go? Well, I don't know. Where are you going? I can't tell you the best way to get somewhere if I don't know where you want to go. What's your budget? How quickly do you want to get there? And do you plan on going anywhere else? Or are you going to be there a while? For some people, the majority of businesses where the vast majority of computers are sold, Intel remains their choice for various reasons. 90% of the computers sold in the world are sold to companies. Somewhere around that. Maybe it's 80%, but it's the vast majority of the computers sold are sold to businesses. And the vast majority of businesses, by far, want Intel. And by the way, Intel makes more than CPUs. Intel makes chips for your car. Intel makes, so AMD doesn't. AMD pretty much just makes, you know, a fraction of what Intel makes. Intel has an inventory product list of thousands of items, and AMD has maybe a couple dozen. So if AMD, full bore, manufactured and sold everything their factory could make, The total amount of money AMD can make in a year is a fraction of what Intel makes in a year, because Intel's got their fingers in so many other pies. But when you talk online, all people care about, and they think in their mind outside of business, they think the only thing that matters is home users and gaming. And they're all communicating together as though they're the only people on the world buying computers. And it couldn't be further from the truth. So the answer depends on which person are you. Are you a business? Are you a home user? And are you using your computer for gaming? And what's your budget? And what games are you playing? In some answers, AMD, and some answers will be Intel. There's no universal truth. If there was, one of those products wouldn't exist anymore. There's a reason they exist. It may not apply to you, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose for others. So there is no clear winner. It really depends on a lot of different factors. It's like asking me what car is the best car to drive. Well, do you want a van? Do you need a school bus? Are you looking for a two-door, a hybrid, electric? You're looking for a four-wheel drive, off-road car, vehicle, towing? You're looking for something diesel? You want something that can hold a big family, or is it just you? You want something that has cheap insurance or great gas mileage, or you want something with a lot of power that's a show-offy, like Corvette kind of thing? Maybe you need a pickup truck. You work construction, you need to load your tools in the back. You don't want anything fancy, you're just going to screw it all up with all your tools, and you need something you can bang around. Are you looking for something that has a manual transmission or an automatic? Does the number of gears matter to you? We can go on forever on this. There's a right answer for each individual that may be the wrong answer for every other individual. That's why we have choices. Nobody is forced to your needs, nor are you forced to theirs. So what is your preference and your needs are not mine and my needs. You asked a question that has no definitive answer for anybody other than you. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. I'm just going to see if there's any final questions here. Morton said he saw Star Wars pinball at Costco today, $5,000. I don't want a new pinball. I would want a classic from the 80s. That's what I want. I want a refurbished vintage. I don't want a replicate. What do you call that? A reproduction. And I don't want, geez, they have those one-up arcade games. They're terrible. They're the worst I've ever seen. I don't know who's buying these, but these are a joke. How dare they say, look, it's a Pac-Man. It's not. It isn't. It's not what Pac-Man was like. But if you have a Pac-Man from the 80s that's all banged up from being in an arcade and being beaten on, I'll take one any day of the week. Moon Patrol, Sinistar, Joust, Gyrus, a real vintage arcade machine. In fact, don't even clean it up. As long as it works, the more banged up and scarred up it is, the better broken in the controls are, and the more realistic it is with nostalgia, because that's how it really was. It was pretty rare you ever got to play a game in an arcade that was in pristine condition. The screen would be scratched. The decals would be peeling off. The T-molding would be like all scuffed up and torn. Yeah, that's real. That's authentic. Give me one that has the scars of life on it. You're not going to find it at Costco. That's all I'm saying. We were talking about, you talk about a company's worth. You mentioned, oh, Intel's not doing well compared to AMD, but AMD wasn't doing well. These aren't permanent things. The tide comes in and it goes out, and the companies have their ups and their downs. But take NVIDIA. Like, NVIDIA is struggling. Now NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company. I want you to think about that for a minute. Because I think as humans, when we hear that number, we really don't know what that number means. If you had $1 trillion, you personally, and by the way, there are individuals, rich people. I'm not sure how much Zuckerberg is worth, but let's just say you had $1 trillion. So Microsoft is $1 trillion company. NVIDIA is $4 trillion company. If you had 1 trillion and you spent, all right, this is a question for you, just because I want you to visualize what this means. If you have $1 trillion and you spent $1 million a day, how many days would it take you to spend $1 trillion? If you spent $1 million, exactly $1 million every single day, how many days will it take you before you run out of money? If you want, you can give it to me in years. I'll wait. Bajan guy says 1,000 days. So 1,000 days, that means that 1,000 days, that's how many years? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go over here to I'm going to ask Copilot. You think 1 trillion is 1,000 million? Or is 1 trillion a million million? Just asking. What do you think it is? Is 1 trillion 1,000 million? Or is 1 trillion 1 million million? Fred Sunderman said it would take 1 million days at $1 million a day, which is almost 2,700 years. That sounds right. $1 million a day, every day, for 2,700 years. Now multiply that times 4, and that's what NVIDIA and Microsoft are worth. Has your head exploded yet? If you started spending $1 million, I'm reading the perspective from Copilot. If you started spending $1 million a day in the year 500 AD, you'd still be spending today $1 million a day, and you wouldn't finish until the year 3240. NVIDIA and Microsoft are worth 4 times than that, 4 times more than that. give you something to think about. It's hard to wrap a human mind to conceptualize those numbers without special education. It is really through perspective to really get the scale and depth of that. If you think Microsoft makes their money from Windows 11, or Amazon makes their money selling you stuff, like goods, no. It's not where Amazon's making their money. NVIDIA's not making the money selling graphics cards to gamers. It's not even scratching the surface. So when you go on the internet and you hear people talking about this stuff, like they're in such a secluded, blinded vision that if you take the blinders off and realize how big the room is you're standing in, you're going to look like a speck of sand. And all of a sudden, all those things that you were so tunnel visioned on, once you take those blinders off and you look up and around and you realize all that things that you thought were massive, they're teeny, teeny, tiny in the scope of the world and other businesses and those things those businesses make, whether it's Intel or AMD, if it's Windows or Apple. You know, these things are, you know, Apple Computer, for example, if they're not a $4 trillion company, I think they're getting close, aren't they? I know they're over $3 trillion. All of a sudden, the insignificance of it all, at our level here talking on the internet, it's meaningless. It holds almost zero value by comparison when we talk about this company makes great products. You know, Corsair doesn't hold a candle, you know, to Microsoft or Apple or Dell or HP. Do you know how many computers Dell sold in 2024? We can answer that right now. I'm going to open Copilot. I'm going to type in how many computers did Dell, and I'm not talking about HP or Acer, I'm not talking about Lenovo, just one company that makes computers in 1 year, the most recent year. How many computers did Dell sell in 2024? Anybody want to guess? So I might sell in a good year 50 computers, 40, couple a month, 3 a month. That'd be a good year for me. Last year, according to Copilot, HP, Dell, and Lenovo are neck and neck year after year. And it's saying the 2024 sales data hasn't been calculated yet. However, maybe we go back one more year because it's not that different year after year. If anything, it usually gets bigger. So what about 2023? Dell, just Dell, nobody else, in 12 months sold 40 million computers around the world. Now, if there are 365 days in a year, how many computers do you have to sell per day to total, and we're just rounding numbers, 40 million. So how many computers per day that'd be about 109,000 computers per day. Not HP, we're not talking about Lenovo. They're probably also somewhere around 100,000 PCs per day, or computers, could be mini PC, laptop, workstation, whatever. How many computers did you build today? You understand that Intel and AMD are selling them computers, right? Or they're selling them the chips. They're selling Dell, HP, and Lenovo AMD chips and Intel chips. They're not jumping on the internet. Michael Dell isn't getting on the internet going, we're not using AMD. Like, no, they use them both. And depending on who their clientele are primarily buying, which is usually businesses, they lean towards Intel because that's what businesses want. But they won't say no to AMD either. But if you're talking to gamers and home users, it's the exact opposite. But if you ask how many computers, you know what, let's just ask, how many computers did Dell sell in 2023 to home users? Anybody want to guess what percentage of 109,000 per day went to home users? That's about 11.4 million units at an average price of $800 per PC. If the average price was closer to 1,000, the number would be about 9.1 million units. So 11.4 million units is how many per day? Less than a third. And in fact, I would say it's probably lower than that. Probably around 20% of all computers sold go to the people on the internet. The other 80% go to people at work. Now, you can be both. You can be at work and be on the internet. But I'm just saying the people that are vocalizing the financial status and popularity of Intel versus AMD likely don't really see what's happening in reality. They're only seeing the little 20% part. They're not seeing the other 80. That's what I suspect is happening, just on the absurdity of what I'm reading as though it were fact. And it's not that it's not factual. But if you only want to see 20% and talk about a specific 20%, they're right. But they also very rarely acknowledge that the other 80% exists and put it really in perspective. And a lot of the information you're reading online, that's over and over and over again. 20% of the information is what they're providing you. And within that 20%, what they're saying is true today. It's subject to change any day. It sure would be nice if someone came out with full disclosure and said that. Oh, by the way, we're only talking about a fifth of the computers sold worldwide. And by comparison, doesn't really make a whole lot of difference to the industry one way or the other. If every consumer stopped buying a computer, Intel and AMD would still have plenty of work to do. In fact, they might have some layoffs, but they'd still be busy. Just tell you, they'd be making 80%. They're still making. All right. I don't know why this isn't just public information and common knowledge. I don't know why I have to point it out. Other than I don't know why nobody else that I've seen is showing the world anything to compare it to. You know, when you compare Intel to AMD, why are we only comparing it under this 20%? Why aren't we comparing it at the full scope of what they do? And just out of, and this isn't to pick sides. They're both great companies. I'm happy. This is an AMD chip in this unit here. This is the 9850X3D. But I also have an Ultra 5, an Ultra 7, and the previous streamer was a 7850X3D. I'm absolutely bipartisan when it comes to this issue. I don't care. But I do care what the customer wants and what their budget is and what their needs are. And I choose, you know, which chip is going to fit their needs that I'm going to have to support. And that's how we accommodate our users. I'm not just looking out for myself. I don't care. This machine could be Intel AMD. It doesn't change anything. So if I go to how much, if Intel sold everything they made in a year, how much revenue? Intel's revenue in the last 12 months ending June 30th, 2025 was $53.07 billion, and that's a 3.72% decline year over year. 3% is what everybody's freaking out about. Oh my God, the world's ending. They sold 3% less. They still got a long way to go before they hit zero. If AMD sold everything in 1 year, how much revenue would they make? They sold out of everything they make. According to AMD's latest financial results, in 2024, 25.7, less than half. Intel used to be like 3 or 4 times more. So Intel's definitely coming down, but they're still, they just make more products. They sell more products to more industries. It's not just CPUs. It's way more than that. AMD, on the other hand, is mostly just CPUs, GPUs, you know, they're EPIC chips. But for the most part, you're not going to find AMD chips in your cars and your appliances. You could, and I'm not sure why you don't, but I just don't think that's a market AMD has penetrated yet. But, you know, things can change overnight, and that information I have may have changed. Maybe they do now. But Intel makes chips for missiles. They make chips for GPS and satellite. They make chips for anything electronic that needs a chip. Intel's probably got a finger in it. AMD, on the other hand, mostly just computers. And I would love to see that balance out. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to take AMD a while. They're on their way, and competition is always good, but you need to know Intel is way more than just a CPU company. And a lot of the electronic items you use every day have Intel chips inside of them. So, of course, we don't want to see Intel fail. We don't want to see AMD fail either. And I don't like the CEO that's in charge at Intel right now. And I have to believe there's not an engineer employed at Intel that likes this guy. Because what he's basically saying is, we're not good enough. We need to shut down our fabrication units. We need to give up because our employees aren't capable of doing the work. So if you worked for a guy like that, how would you feel about his attitude? Let's just sell pieces off like an investment company ravishing a, large company buys out a smaller company and they tear it apart for parts and sell it off. That's what it appears. What's his name? Lip Bhutan? Like he wants to focus on getting the shareholders' money today. And in doing so, burn the company to the ground, leaving nothing. I hope I'm wrong, and or they replace him as soon as possible with somebody who believes in the employees, has hope for the future, and pushes hard to get it done. Doesn't wave a white flag and say, let's cut our losses and sell it all off. That turns my stomach. That's almost treacherous. That's like a traitor in charge of the company. It is the ultimate in betrayal. If you've dedicated your life and career to working for this company and the leader of the company wants to sell you off for your parts, I couldn't imagine a worse CEO for Intel. From what I know, and I may not have all the info, but that's the way it's being reported. And if I worked there, I would be so offended and so betrayed. I don't even know that I'd be motivated to want to do any work. Why should I try harder? My CEO has given up on me, so I'm just going to clock in and clock out and not give it any extra effort, because that's the message he's sending in the media. So we'll see how it plays out. I hope I'm wrong. I also hope he's replaced. John Paul Bacon mentions even AMD computers use some kind of Intel chips, whether it's an Intel network card or Wi-Fi card, whether it's an Intel, some of them have Thunderbolt, which is Intel's own technology. Yeah, it's true. Okay, with that, that's going to wrap it up for us for today. Just kind of an off the cuff. Had some time. Wanted to visit with you guys. Thanks for hanging out. It's good to see everybody. We appreciate y'all being here. And maybe we answered 2 tech support questions today. I guess that's better than none. But seriously, if you're ever having a problem with a computer, before you get upset and start telling us how terrible the company is that sold it to you, maybe reach out to the company first. And if you don't get any response, or you have a unsatisfactory response, reach out to us. We might be able to help you. If you never do, you'll never know how it could have all played out differently. We have a gentleman we sent a Trig Key Mini PC to. He never told us he had a problem with it. Never said a word. And then when he did speak up, it happened months ago. Stopped working. Okay? What'd you try and do to fix it? Well, I tried this, I tried that. Well, did you try reaching out to us? No. Why not? Well, I'm busy. Okay. I don't think it takes a whole lot of time. We're happy to take a look at it. It could be something simple. Maybe. I'm not saying we will, but maybe they mail the computer back to us so we can evaluate it. Maybe there truly is something broken. Maybe I have something sitting on the shelf here I'll send in return just because I'm a nice guy. But if you decline giving me the opportunity to help you, and you're going to sit there and be like, well, it doesn't work. Okay. If you can't fix it, maybe I can. Why don't you just send it to me? Let me take a look at it. What do you got to lose? I can't break it. So if you guys have any, like, hey, my computer's having an issue, before you go all crazy editing your registry and downloading files and utilities, before you do that, please reach out and ask us if maybe we know something about that, because we just might. It'll probably be a faster and easier fix than whatever road, if you're guessing and you're throwing darts at the wall. If you enjoy that, don't let me get in your way. Have at it. I'm assuming you don't like that, and I'm assuming you don't like having a computer that doesn't work or that's running slow. That's what we're here to help you with, but we cannot read your mind. If you do not present us with the issue, we can't help you. So if you don't want the help, that's fine too. But the door's open. The email address I'm going to put up on the screen one more time. Best way to reach us is through our email. We also have our user forums at CareyHolzman.boards.net. CareyHolzman.boards.net. It's all free, open to the public every single day, every hour of every day of the year. You want to come in there and write your problem and have the community as well as me and Mara take a look at it? You want to share your build or an experience? It's a great place to do that. We love hearing from you. And you want to privately email us? There's the email address. If you don't get a response within 24 hours, we never got your email, you likely misspelled it. If that's the case, and you can't figure out why we're not getting your email, you can tell us in a live chat, or you can go to the CareyHolzman.boards.net. Say, hey, I'm trying to email you. But I assure you, it very rarely ever happens where we don't get an email. I can't think of a time where it has happened where the end user didn't mistype something. Once we figured that out, then you just have to hit reply. Then it's easy sailing from there. So we love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to reach out. And if we can help with an issue, even if you're in another country and it's not practical to send it to us to repair, we might have some ideas for you to try. I mean, if it's already broken, what have you got to lose? Or if you're trying to resolve an issue, like, oh, it's running slow, or I can't access something over the network or a printer to scan, we can probably help you with that too. But it starts with you reaching out to us and try not to damage it too much further, trying to fix it yourself, making helping you far more complicated. The earlier, sooner we hear from you when you realize there's an issue, the faster and easier it traditionally is to fix. That doesn't mean we can't fix it otherwise. It just might be multiple fixes instead of just one. All right. Thanks again for hanging out. We will see you all again, likely tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the usual time. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for the super chats and your support, all the members. Of course, Tamara, they're working in all the administrative stuff she does in the background, the video notes, the thumbnails that she made last minute for this video. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just checking email. I need a thumbnail. When? 3 minutes. I'm a joy to work for, to work with. All right, that'll wrap it up. I'll see you all tomorrow. Till then, bye for now.